Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and this it's Billboard Breakdown. So we're now in our last 2 months of the Billboard year. It ends in November, and yes, that makes both more and less sense than you think it does. And yet, I'm a little bit surprised how uncertain the Hot 100 feels right now going into those last 2 months. Granted, this is one of those weeks where it feels deceptively quiet in that we only really had a few new arrivals, but again, major turbulence is coming considering the albums that are on the horizon. It'll be fascinating to see what cracks first. Of course, a big part of that instability is only being reinforced by our top 10, where for only the second time in the Billboard Hot 100 chart history, a female rapper on her own has taken the #1 with a hip-hop song, following in the wake of Lorde and Little, something that Nicki Minaj, with all her pop crossovers, was never able to pull off. #1 belongs to Bodak Yellow by Cardi B. And I can't be the only one who thinks that such a monumentous occasion like this feels kind of weird, right? The song where Cardi B basically jacked Kodak Black's flow and did it better against your standard bass swamped out trap beat, and that's all you need to go to #1? I mean, don't get me wrong, I get the song's appeal. Streaming and YouTube took this up the charts with a sales discount to put it on top, but its position seems remarkably precarious, because out of nowhere, we've got a collaboration debuting at #2, Rockstar by Post Malone featuring 21 Savage. Now, I'll have a lot more to say about the song later, not a lot of it all that good, but the rise of this track is nothing short of astounding, as it was dominant on sales and streaming, but with no YouTube, no real radio, you're not going to get that #1 spot. Of course, this leaves Look What You Made Me Do by Taylor Swift in kind of a weird position. Shoved back to #3 in every category except radio, where she actually regained some stability, but not enough to stave off getting pushed back. And yet, depending what happens when discounts end, this could make a play for a comeback. Of course, it's also facing the competition from 1-800-273-8255 by Logic featuring Alessia Cara and Khalid at #4, which still has strong streaming and YouTube traction and the radio finally getting on board, but with the sales starting to slip, it might be too little too late for this song. Now, none of that's a concern for Despacito by Louis Fonsi, Daddy Yankee with a remix with Bieber at #5, basically propped up on YouTube at this point as all other categories continue to plummet. But that's not quite the explanation for Unforgettable by French Montana featuring Sway Lee recovering up to #6. I mean, it's got decent sales, some radio stability, but with streaming down, my guess is more that it went up because Sam Smith dropped out of the top 10 entirely. Spoiler alert. Now, probably also the same case for Believer by Imagine Dragons at #7. A good sales week compensating for losses everywhere else, especially on the radio. Then you got the return to the top 10 entirely thanks to streaming for this song, Rake It Up by Yo Gotti featuring Nicki Minaj at #8. And while I'm still not a fan of the song at all, and radio seems kind of reticent too, the streaming will probably keep it above Attention by Charlie Puth at #9, which is only clinging to the top spot thanks to radio and probably not for much longer. And then we get the weirdest new arrival to the top 10 yet, Feel It Still by Portugal the Man. I mean, don't get me wrong, the song has grown on me a lot. I like how much radio is pushing it to match with all the sales, but if you're coming from the indie scene at all throughout the past 5-10 years and you expected to see Portugal the Man as a top 10 artist, it's just weird, let me say that. Now, thankfully, things look a lot less weird when you take a look at our losers and dropouts. And yeah, I'm not really all that happy that Versace on the Floor by Bruno Mars is gone entirely too soon. But when you promote a crappy remix over the real song, that's what happens. And at least Magnolia by Playboi Carti is out with it. And our losers, they fall in line in a similar way. As I already said, Too Good at Goodbyes fell out of the top 10 down to #16. It will probably rebound. The radio loves this guy. And really, that behavior was indicative of a lot of last week's debuts. Dust Till Dawn by Zayn and Sia fell down to 63. Love So Soft by Kelly Clarkson fell hard to 81. I'll Name the Dogs by Blake Shelton went to 88. And No Limit by G-Eazy featuring A$AP Rocky and Cardi B went to 97. Although, I'd expect this last one to rebound pretty hard if Cardi B can hold on to the #1 for more than just a week, as she's arguably even better on this track. Then you have the other expected losers. Everybody Dies in Their Nightmares by XXXTentacion sputtering down to 96, along with Fetish by Selena Gomez Gomez featuring Gucci Mane to 87. Man, Selena did not catch a break on this album cycle, yikes. And Taylor Swift's Ready For It continues to nosedive at 34. Also not a good sign coming up for Reputation, but what's more worrisome is that even despite it falling to 98, These Ho by Bad Baby got a third week on the Hot 100. Again, I don't think we've seen the last of her just yet, and I can only imagine that Cardi B's success might ripple out and give her a bit of a boost. It's not like their styles or flow or production are all that different. So again, what the hell's gonna stand against that? Well, it's not a good sign that our only returning entry is Perfect by Ed Sheeran at 89. Going for the tried and true ballad route, given how the States didn't take to Galway Girl. And when we look at our gains, it's somehow even worse. Hills and Automobiles by Chris Brown featuring Yo Gotti, A Boogie with the Hoodie, and Kodak Black up off the debut to 79. Gucci Gang by Lil Pump up to 71. Bad at Love by Halsey continuing up to 61 thanks to radio and sales. In any case, I think we might have to wait for a real album bomb to shake things up, especially as our list of new arrivals is pretty small. So okay, why not bring in a world hit remix that actually features one of those groups that really should have crossed over by now?
It started when I looked in her eyes, I got close and I'm like, bailemos, hey. La noche está para un reggaeton lento, esos que no se bailan hace tiempo. Yo solo la miré, me gustó, me pegué, la invité y bailemos, hey. So now we dancing un reggaeton lento. Just get a little closer, baby, let go.
And the funny thing is that you might assume I'm talking about Little Mix here, given my history, but I think I'd be okay with either group crossing over here. Now, for those of you who do not know, CNCO, they're a Latin American boy band that, like Little Mix, is formed as a result of a reality show win. So after they toured a little bit with Ricky Martin, they dropped an album last year and had the original version of this song rack up 1 billion views on YouTube. Make no mistake, these guys are a genuine world hit, and that outside the United States, they are goddamn huge. So okay, why not enable that English language crossover with the other worldwide smash group that somehow hasn't broken decisively in the States yet? And make no mistake, this is a great song. Acoustic guitar against more texture percussion lets Perry use her throaty lower range that sounds fantastic, and Jesse and Leanne get kind of feisty too, with the slight synth accents playing off the strings, the harmonies that show just how well both groups mesh together, anchoring the whole group hook up in the lyrics that actually really flows well. And while I'm not hugely familiar with CNCO, that guy Eric damn near sounds like Usher. At this point, I'm a little bit annoyed this hasn't hit Canada yet, just the UK and the rest of the world. Okay, folks, can we make this happen, please? Because I like this more every single time I hear it. Awesome song, great track. And now back to the rest of our schedule, which unfortunately is not quite as good. Number 92. Homemade Dynamite by Lorde featuring Khalid, Post Malone, and SZA.
Dynamite, our friends, our drinks, we get inspired, blowing shit up with homemade.
I wanna feel the light.
Okay, when I first heard about this remix, the first thing I immediately thought is that one of these artists is not like the others. Lorde working with Khalid, kind of obvious, but workable. Lorde working with SZA, that sounds magical. But throw in Post Malone? Well, to my amazement, he kind of fits. They all do, as a matter of fact. Well, let's get this out of the way. Homemade Dynamite has only grown on me since Melodrama dropped. It was not really one of my favorite songs off the record, if I'm being honest. And while I'm still not wild about that stuttered chorus, all the guests, they make the best of it. Khalid plays the driver that might as well end up splattered on the road for being too high. SZA plays the party girl who sidles effortlessly in. And Post Malone, he plays up the swells of Oregon on the final verse as the clueless guy who's just trying to make some sort of connection with whatever faltering sincerity he can muster. It's actually kind of charming in a bewildering sort of way. It really plays into the party vibe remarkably well. And while the track has a little bit less graphic content because of the lyrical shifts, which yeah, blunts a bit of its edge, but it pushes it towards party banger territory remarkably well. This was a big surprise how well this turned out. It's a good one too. Definitely check this track out. Hope it does well. Number 85, DNA by BTS.
영원히 함께니까. 모든 건 우연이 아니니까. 운명을 찾아낸 둘이니까. 미안해.
I shouldn't be surprised that a K-pop song crossed over into the Hot 100. In fact, I should be surprised there aren't more of them more often, given how much K-pop is pushed into popular culture in the States, especially online. But it's hard to get songs that aren't in English or Spanish to chart thanks to the radio, and thus, while the rest of the world got on board with BTS, the United States only let the one song hit the Hot 100. And, look, the reason I personally don't cover a lot of K-pop is that, for the most part, it can feel a little bit too plastic, and it can occasionally lack a tighter instrumental focus. Now, for the most part, that's not really an issue here. The mixed blending is a little bit more subtle, courtesy of being anchored in that acoustic guitar and that whistle, and the more brash rapping delivery plays well enough off the crooning, at least until we get the pseudo dubstep breakdown after the hook, which I thought we left back in 2012. But really, I think my biggest issue actually comes in the lyrics, not with the segments that are switched to English to enable that crossover, but what I found translated from Korean. I mean, it's just me, but saying that none of this love story is a coincidence and that their meeting is like a mathematical formula to fill some sort of DNA predicted destiny. Okay, maybe again, cultural differences, maybe some mistranslation on my part, but it just kind of strikes me as a little bit creepy, doesn't fit with the framing and the instrumentation. But overall, when it comes to K-pop, this is inoffensive enough. I have certainly heard worse, but I'm not seeing that spark that'll really keep this around the United States. Just saying. Number 67, Curve by Gucci Mane featuring The Weeknd.
No, you don't deserve it. I got that work. I know you want the Birkin, baby. Are you worth it? With the curve, I know you don't deserve it. No, you don't deserve it. I got that word. I need to know for certain. Tell me, are you worth it?
So, Gucci Mane is now in full promotion mode for when Mr. Davis drops in October, and as you would expect, his next release is his song with The Weeknd, because obviously. And considering I actually liked his song with Migos, I did have some expectations this could work, and it really doesn't. I'm sorry, it's a weird thing how The Weeknd seems to make any song he's on his own, but I don't even think he sounds all that good on this. That flat and nasal synth that doesn't complement any muted melody or evolve at all against the knocking trap beat, and The Weeknd just sounding utterly miserable on his verse as he makes it very clear that your girl doesn't deserve any of the money that he's spending on her, which kind of clashes against Gucci Mane's generally upbeat demeanor, where he knows the girl just wants sex and he just doesn't seem to care. He's along for the ride. More importantly, he's not even really taking your girlfriend. He's more interested in partying halfway around the world in Dubai with the girls there. So you have to wonder whether he or The Weeknd were even on the same page when it comes to marrying the content. As it is, this is mediocre at best. It's really not good at all. Not exactly a good sign when the Gucci Mane outshines The Weeknd on a song like this, because in that case, there really is an upper limit on how good the song will be. Number 66, Too Much to Ask by Niall Horan.
Without you for the first time, my heart is open. You walk right into now to tell me there are things that you regret. Cause if I'm being honest, I ain't over you yet. That's all I'm asking. Is it too much to ask?
Now, I'll be the first to admit I've been a lot more forgiving of Niall than pretty much everybody at this point, as I thought This Town was a really damn good acoustic pop tune, and Slow Hands was generally passable. And this, honestly, again, it's kind of passable, but it can't help but feel like ground that he already trod better with This Town. Again, it's post-breakup, Niall's trying to wonder what he could have done better and what her regrets were in the relationship. These are not bad questions to ask, sure, especially as his delivery doesn't feel all that tortured or clingy, which is the right direction. Probably not the best choice to put it on the hook how he's not yet over this girl, but you at least get the impression that he's heading in that direction. But if anything, I'm more underwhelmed by the production here. The foundation of piano against the drum machine, the liquid guitars. It reminds me a lot of something you would hear from mid-tier adult alternative acts in the mid-2000s like Gavin DeGraw or James Blunt if they were making music today. I mean, it's tolerable, I guess, but it's very middle of the road in the most obvious way possible, and it gives me the impression that the greatest weakness for Niall Horan going forward won't be making bad songs, in the writing especially, but bland, unchallenging ones. I mean, let's hope the album's better, but I don't have a good feeling. And finally, number 2, Rockstar by Post Malone featuring 21 Savage.
All my brothers got that gas and they always be smoking like a rockstar. Fucking with me, call up on the Uzi and show up, man, them the shot toss. When my homies pull up on your block, they make that thing go grata-ta-ta.
And here we have the big breakthrough single, the one where two hip-hop acts try to take on a label that would certainly demand more energy if they were going to be convincing in that mold, and wow, I'm not impressed at all by this. For one, if you're going to make a song about being a rock star, you'd think there would be a guitar somewhere on the song, not your standard desaturated synth and barren trap beat. But again, it's not about making rock music, it's about living like a rock star in that lifestyle. But even then, I don't really buy it, because what rock star is just pulling up on people with Uzis? Even Axl Rose didn't really do that. But just because you can reference Jim Morrison and Bon Scott doesn't mean you have either their intensity or their firepower, especially when Post Malone's got that limp warble at the end of the verse that no amount of auto-tune can make sound tolerable. Now, 21 Savage, okay, this is a tone that fits his voice a little bit better, but it's not like his content is interesting as he raps about stealing your girlfriend and doing coke, and then rapping like he's the furthest thing from doing coke. At least when Nickelback made a song of this same title, it was kind of self-aware and fell roughly in the same genre, whereas I don't like this for the same reasons I couldn't stand White Iverson. It's utterly boring, Post Malone is a shockingly limited performer, and he only gets worse when he's trying to appropriate the success of better artists and acts who he can't come close to measuring up to. In other words, man, worst of the week, kind of a toss-up here between Rockstar and Curve. But you know what? I think I'm gonna give it to Curve, if only because the synth is just awful, and The Weeknd was such a disappointment on it. He could do better. At least 21 Savage and Post Malone were roughly on topic with this song, and there were no egregiously bad raps, which is kind of tolerable, even if I don't think, again, they don't belong anything close to a rock star dynamic. Now the best, yeah, Homemade Dynamite by Lorde, SZA, Khalid, and Post Malone, no question at all. One of the few cases where Post Malone's doofy kind of performance actually fits the vibe. Let's see if Rockstar actually can hold any traction in next week, or if the charts dissolve into more chaos. I kind of think it's gonna fall out, and that'll be better for all of us, but regardless of what happens, it's bound to be interesting. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.